Welcome to the bold analysis, ladies and gentlemen. The Beijing authorities have come out to react about a latest statement by presidential contenders in this country that they are going to deport Chinese who are working in the country. Big blunder, big time. There is no country that stands alone. Kenya have debts, and these debts must be serviced by whichever administration that is going to take over from President Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta. But at the center of every manifesto, if there is two special issues that other players, other international players normally look at, the international community look at, is your foreign policy, because it touches on investment. And if you remember in the US elections, there was really a chunk of people that did not vote for Donald Trump because of his strong critic and now speaking passionately about deporting some people from US to Africa and to other countries. So the issue of foreign policy is something that you cannot underestimate. And when Joe Biden came to power, he had to undo some of the policies that, of course, he had to review some of the policies that were put there by Donald Trump. Back home, there are a lot of loose ends in the policy interventions that the Kenya Kwanza team are actually proposing, and they have an effect in this election. The global community, and now the Beijing authorities are actually taking an issue with a latest statement by Deputy President that they are going to deport Chinese who are doing small businesses in the country. I want to agree with DP Ruto that according to the government regulations and protocols, the threshold of a business that a foreigner can do in the country. And that ceiling was actually set to protect the other small businesses in the country. I want to agree, yes, that someone cannot come from China to come here and sell maize. And if you know any, maybe someone should help us. I've gone through town. I've never seen any doing, but of course there are many Chinese nationals that are staying in the country and doing businesses. They have spoken about this passionately during economic forums, and I want to play for you these videos by Moses Kuria and Deputy President William Samoei Ruto. Now listen to that here.
Hiyo mambo ya ati watu wa China wanauza mahindi pale na kuuza simu retail, hawa wote tutawapandisha ndege warudi kwao. Hiyo biashara hiyo yote, hiyo biashara ni biashara ya watu wa Kenya ya sisi, na kiwango ya biashara ambayo hairuhusiwi kisheria. Ati mtu kutoka China akuja auze mahindi pale nini? Hiyo haiwezekani. Hiyo hapana. No. Hiyo tutawapandisha ndege tuwahamishe kabisa. So I want to support hii maneno ya Chinese. Na umesema tuwaweke kwa ndege. Na ndege zikijaa tuweke pia kwa huru tu. Because we cannot continue. Ni nani hapa? Is there a hawker in Beijing? Mwafrika. Kuna mtu anatoka hapa Nairobi anafanya kazi huko Beijing. And I want to put them on notice pia. Sio tu kuwafukuza. Hata hiyo madeni yao, we must sit down and discuss.
I want to say that despite of having a professional communication team with immediately foreign affairs diplomat Ababu Namwamba, I was so disappointed that DP Ruto committed this big mistake. Because in his campaign trail, this is a statement that has come true. Now, the criticism of government policies should have limitations. And I think the latest one from DP Ruto on this issue was misadvised. And it points out to his circle of advisors that this was irrelevant and unnecessary. Even on the voting platform, even if it is about winning voters, I don't think you will really win a chunk of you're going to gain a lot of political capital from the Kenyan voter by telling him that you are going to deport Chinese. And just days to the election, the Beijing authorities have come out guns blazing, and they are complaining about that statement. The reason why this cannot be taken lightly as just a campaign language or just something that was just said in a campaign trail is because in the manifesto there was a clause they spoke about forming a quasi-judicial body that was going to review some of the policies and some of the policies that President Uhuru Kenyatta had formulated, or rather some of the laws, legislative and administrative policies that President Uhuru Kenyatta administration have had for some time. And to the global scene, because they have gone through that, that manifesto, they can see that one of the policies that might be reviewed is touching on the Chinese nationals. This was a big blunder. The Chinese built SGR, Thika Road, the recently launched Nairobi Expressway. They also have huge chunks of tenders in the Konza city, and there is a lot that is going on, and it shows you that the president went east. However, I want to just go a little bit deep and say that even though DP Ruto was trying to signal that he might be going to the west and might not go to the east, but it is a bit premature to make that to lay that bare. I know even President Uhuru, even Raila Odinga has a soft spot for the West. Raila is a West man, but that you cannot come up in this election period and make that one bare, because the international community plays a role and they have an influence factor. It might not be so much consequential, but they have an influence factor in this election. And Ruto is simply going out and committing another blunder by telling them that, look here, I will not go east. It seems I'm going to look for another direction. Of course, if he doesn't want continuity, because to the Kenya Kwanza team, the continuity is not part of their agenda. They might change. And another thing is, one thing I've always criticized the bottom up. The framers of bottom up are so much pan-Kenyan that they are not accommodative of the foreign investments. Because I look at that model as one that has been so shrinked and framed only to suggest that for economic recovery of the country, it is only the mama mboga, the person at the lower part of the pyramid, to be given money or access to financing. That's what they're saying, access to financing, then increase tax base. From that point, government is going to get back to its foot. But that could be an overnight dream. For it to succeed, I want to say that the bottom-up economic model that they are pitching is actually excluding the foreign investors, because the financing access is so much concentrated. I think in one of the interviews, Gachagua was coming out to say that we shall close the Safaricom and take that money. If we've been given KQ billions, we should take that money and give to Mamamboga. And honestly, lastly to say is, the people that are supposed to be given the Mamambogas, they are also the consumers. But at the top of the pyramid, you can create 4 companies that can employ many people, and with good policies, it's still a point. So I want to point out why this is a big blunder. And the thinkers and the framers of this narrative really did not have a second thought. And what it points out, the brand of politics or the brand of governance that Kenya Kwanza are trying to project. Kindly subscribe to our channel, click the notification bell, and like our video. I am still reminding us that we are running a 50 bob challenge for one of our subscribers, Sarah Tieno Nyango. She's suffering acute leukemia and she is in Kenyatta Hospital. Of course, she has gone through the chemo sessions and she has reprieve. If you talk to her, she is really in high spirit. But the bill inflated to 1 million. So after a conversation here, we agreed that we can make a challenge that at least each one of us to just donate 50 shillings. If 20,000 can achieve that, then before in the next 10 days, we will be in a position to produce a 1 million check for Sarah. Team Bold, we are connecting it through 07, my number, 10 62 78 89. You can also talk directly to Sarah and also make a donation to her directly. Her number is 07 16 357 360. 07 16 357 360. And may God bless us. Financial Times are the ones that reported, Financial Times from UK, is reporting that Beijing leaders felt aggrieved by William Ruto and Wajakoya's statements on the election issue. Even though you can see coherence, but there is a language of restructuring and renegotiating the debt, because at the end of the day there must be servicing. And I like the approach that has been given with Raila, because Raila has given it a diplomatic approach, that this is not something that can be solved here. The reason why this issue about foreign policy is a big deal to Deputy President is when President Uhuru Kenyatta engaged the military, 1, and 2, went to the international collaborations and cooperations, it shrinked the public-private partnerships, PPP. But the PPP is where government gets into a private agreement with the public, gets with the private entrepreneurs, and then through that they can fund some government projects, or rather they can do, they can also implement some projects. The challenge, this model is normally very effective because monetary is very easy, and 2, you can also fasten projects, but it's most effective on small scale constructions of road there, maybe procurement of some stuff to the hospital, etc. But highly intensive, capital intensive projects like SGR, Thika Road and Expressway, mostly they are funded from donors, or rather they're funded from IMF. They're also funded from loans from abroad, from the other countries. And because they want to ensure and make sure that that money gets into it, they prefer to implement the projects themselves. The challenge why DP Ruto is very angry with this is because this limits, because the president went to Chinese and got this global, multi-bilateral corporations, it limited the local tenders, because through the PPP, politicians and influential personalities in government were using those avenues to siphon funds from government and coffers. Remember, during SGR, there were reports of some leaders went and bought land around where they have an idea, Jerry Tapita Hapa. They go and buy land from the locals there so that they can sell to government at a high price, at an inflated price. So this was an avenue of collecting tithes, but of collecting funds from government. But these bilateral deals are above board. And because the Ruto has not been so much in power in the second, so much of an influence in the second term, this was shrinked. And that is why I can tell you for sure, if Ruto is to win this presidency, he will review those bilateral ties, and that which can be brought home will be brought home, so that the tenders can be given to people who are easily accessible, people who can be manipulated to siphon the funds to private pockets. Now, there are foreigners who are voting in Kenya, and what I ask is this: when someone goes to a public rally and says, I am going to deport Chinese, the other nationals that are also in the country, what do they feel? Other countries interpret this as a universal foreign policy. If they're saying they're going to deport Chinese and Chinese are doing projects in Kenya and they've been so much friendly in the country, what happens? How does someone who is working from South Korea and is here feel? How about the people that come from the other countries, even the East African countries? I know Ugandans and Tanzanians, many of them that are in the country and they are selling maize, roasting maize in town. You will, when you walk in town, you will meet them. So this policy, even though it was so much single-handedly rather talking about Chinese, but it can be understood in a broader context that this is a foreign policy that Ruto do not want foreigners in the country. And this is something that can affect his vote, because there is Asian community in this country that are voting. There are Indians in this country that are going to vote, and their vote is also equally important. This was misadvised. It also depicts the Kenya Kwanza DP Ruto as a roadside populist that do not make meticulous, that do not have is a quick decision thinker. Sometimes people who make decisions fast are normally loved because they're problem solvers. But on some issues, you need to be meticulous. You need to have meticulous look into things. So Ruto is seen being displayed here as a man who is just a roadside populist, who will go, there's a problem, fukuza huyaenda, there's a problem, you do this. So such kind is not one that also would augur well with the other people. These foreigners would influence policy and political directions. Because of that much of someone pointing out that I don't want Chinese, so it means that maybe I'm going to go west. And if I'm going west, then it means the people from east can sponsor the other candidate. And this global community, actually it affects because they also have interest. I think my point is the global interests are also in this election, and someone must be cognizant of this fact so that as we move some of these policies that we are then throwing by roadside can have an effect in this, because this is key. China is worried because we have their loan and it must be serviced. So if someone is coming to office and is saying this and that about these loans, I think it's not friendly for us. Ladies and gentlemen, that's my bold. Thank you very much for your support towards Sarah. Let's go.